What's up, guys? So today we're doing a cooking video, the first one of 2022. I haven't done a cooking video in a long time. I do occasionally cook, I just don't always feel like making a video on it. But today I'm making some Italian bruschetta, all right, which is basically a nice little tomato topping on a little crusty piece of bread. It's delicious. I mean, most people know what this is, but if you've never seen it before, you can Google it. It's absolutely wonderful. This is just my take on it. So all you need for this recipe is some bread. Now, I have to give you a little behind the scenes. There's two fails for this video. The first fail was the bread. I actually bought this yesterday, a nice French baguette for this, and the top popped open. All right, from the store, it was taped shut like this. Popped open, it was open all night, and now it is pretty hard. So this will be either croutons or bird feed. So that was the first fail, so I had to go out and get some more fresh bread. As far as the bread, I mean, you could really use anything. If you have a big fat loaf, it's fine. Just cut it down the middle. You generally want smaller pieces. You don't want like huge pieces of bruschetta, because it is just a little appetizer. It's not a whole meal, although I'm sure you can have it as a meal. So generally you want a long skinny piece of crusty bread, which we're going to cut into, you know, little slices. So yeah, so there's a bread fail there. And the other thing was the glaze fail. So this is balsamic glaze. You can make your own, which is what I attempted yesterday. You basically take balsamic vinegar, and you could put either honey or a little bit of sugar in it. You can see the proportions online. I think it's like 6 cups vinegar to maybe like a half a cup of sugar or something like that. Anyway, long story short, I left it on the stove too long while it was, you know, simmering down, and it turned to candy. It was just a solid blob of nothing, so obviously it didn't work out. So I went back to the store today to buy more bread as well as more balsamic vinegar, and I saw this, and it was the same price as the vinegar. So I figured I'll just buy the glaze. So this way I can't screw it up. But I'm sure you can probably make your own glaze at home if you happen to have the vinegar. So we need bread, balsamic vinegar, or balsamic glaze, which is easier. A little bit of shredded Parmesan, okay? Not the, you know, little dusty Parmesan you're shaking on your, you know, chicken parm or something like that. You want like kind of these chunkier pieces, right? So a little bit of a bigger. You can of course get just a chunk of it and shred it yourself. You're going to have some olive oil. Now my only recommendation is getting a good olive oil that you like the taste of, okay? Because this is going to be brushed onto the bread and eaten raw. It's not really cooked. It's not like we're just, you know, sauteing something in it. You are going to taste it more, all right? And there's a difference between super cheap olive oil or like a, you know, a little bit more of a quality brand or something like that. So just keep that in mind. If you happen to, you know, prefer a certain type of olive oil, use the one you would eat raw. Then we want some minced garlic. I'm going lazy today and just, I have some minced garlic already, so I'm going to use that. But of course you could chop up some fresh garlic. We need some Roma tomatoes, all right? Although you can use any tomatoes, Roma tomatoes are good for this because they are a little bit less juicy and wet inside. It just happens to work out great. I have 8 of them here. Don't worry about proportions. It just depends on how much you want to make of this. Of course, you can find a million recipes online. This is just the basic gist of what we're doing. Also, a little bit of red onion. Not using much of that, but I do like a little red onion in there. Definitely a pop of flavor. Gives a little bit of a spiciness to it. An onion spice. And then some fresh basil. And it does make a difference. Use fresh basil, not dried basil. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to move all this stuff off to the side, and we're going to be using some brand new knives today, thanks to my buddy Scott, who hooked me up for Christmas. Well, Christmas/birthday. Before I get started chopping here, we're going to put our stove on to 400, all right, because we're going to be melting that cheese and crusting the bread. So let's get that going. All right, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and you want to wash your hands. I'll probably skip this part, but it is super important. You should not skip it. Make sure if you're preparing food for everyone, your hands are clean. Pretty simple. All right, so now we got nice clean hands. So let me show you real quick some of these blades. Let me get my tripod to work with me. So these are awesome. So Scott got me a set of 3 here for these tomatoes. I'm just going to use this medium one. These are KAI. There we go, that's a better shot of it. So you see KAI Pro. All right, beautiful set. Actually pretty affordable, but a wonderful, wonderful gift that I've been enjoying ever since I got them. They're just, you know, pretty well balanced. They're actually really, really light in the handle, but they've been great. You know, super sharp and working out fine. So, first thing I want to do is dice our tomatoes. I need actually a bowl. Put it in. All right. So, This is a little awkward because I'm standing to the side of the tripod here. So that's off to the right, I'm off to the left here, but hopefully you guys can see. Let me make sure the camera's pointing where I need to be. All right, so all you want to do is dice the tomatoes. All right, so just slice them up. All right, I go ahead, usually I'll just stack them. All right, like this, go long ways. And how big you want the dices, I mean, it's really up to you, but you kind of want them small so everything mixes together nicely. And I'll go ahead and rotate everything. And I'm no professional chef. Maybe you could do this better at home. But come in, and there you go. You got diced tomatoes, right? If you want to come back and make them a little bit smaller, I mean, sometimes I'll go through it. If I literally see something that's bigger, I'll just kind of fan it out. Like that one's a little big, I'll just come in and cut it. That's pretty much it. We have our diced tomatoes, right? All right, so fresh basil, pluck off the stems. All right, we just want leaves here. Okay, well, 2 more leaves. All right, so we're kind of stacking them up there, and you want to roll it up. Roll it up like a tight little doobie. All right. So they're all together. And then you're going to come in and you're going to, so we have a kind of a little log here. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. See if that'll help. All right, there we go. So, just going to come in and just cut through that log. And it's basically making some ribbons. And of course you want to tuck your fingers in. You don't cut them. That is pretty much it. All right, so then you kind of fluff it up, and you'll see there's, you know, lots of little ribbons, and obviously as this all gets, you know, mixed together, it'll incorporate with those tomatoes very nicely. So now, actually, move this stuff over a little bit. We'll get in on some onion. So that's why you're seeing some of this more. And actually, while I'm here, I might as well, well, since we're in close, might as well cut a little onion for you as well. Cut the end off here. All right, I'm just going to do about that much. I really don't want that much onion in here. Make sure you get all your little skins off. All right, definitely don't want any onion skin in there. All right, throw that out. All right, now same thing, kind of like the tomatoes. Move this stuff over. I'm going to cut some lines in, and then I'm going to turn the whole thing and go the opposite direction. And I'll come back, and anything that's big I'll end up chopping. Now the onion I do want small. All right, so I'm going to come back on the pile. All right, and you could use the larger knife here. I tend to usually use a smaller knife when I'm cooking. I don't know why. Sometimes a big old chef's knife is totally appropriate for what you're doing. Other times I just like something small. Then you can come in, you can kind of like chop this a lot smaller. I'm using the tip of the blade against the cutting board here, and just rocking back and forth so the tip never comes off the counter. And I might not even use, depending on what the tomatoes are looking like when they're all cut, I might not even use all this onion because it's a very pungent, very strong flavor. So I'll reserve them all on the side. If I don't use them here, I'll use them in another recipe. I want to say I'm probably going to use like maybe that much, so very little onion. Like I said, I want the tomato and the garlic and, you know, that basil really come out. I don't want it to be overpowered by a bunch of onion. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to cut up the rest of the tomatoes, and then we're going to mix everything together. Alright, so I ended up using 6 of the tomatoes. I think that's plenty, so I'll save those, and I'll save the onion. Here's a little mixture. We're going to grab our garlic. Alright, and I'm going to scoop in. This is really to taste how much garlic you want. I don't think there can be enough. So well, do a little more, just like that. Alright, but of course, if you're not into garlic, you don't even have to use it, but that's kind of blasphemy if you're making bruschetta without garlic. You probably want to just try something else. Then we're going to use a little bit of olive oil. Alright, just a little splasharoo there. And of course, I want some salt and pepper. I'll use this. Fresh cracked pepper. Actually, I want to use another bigger one here. with the little trifecta peppercorns, the medley. And I like pepper, so that should be good. And of course we want a little bit of salt. And that's fine. Then mix her up. Alright, want to incorporate everything together. I know most people use a spoon. I actually do a lot of mixing with a fork. Just kind of how it is. Some garlic trying to escape the bowl here. And again, proportions are everything. If you want, you know, more basil, like personally, if I had more basil, I'd probably put a little bit more in here. It's okay. There's enough basil to go around, but you know, if you don't like the onion, don't use the onion. That's pretty much it. So that is essentially our topping. Now we're going to grab our bread, put this off to the side here. Okay, get rid of our veggies. Grab our crusty bread. Yes, I'm using both loaves, so don't mind cutting the bag open because I'm going to throw out the bag in a minute. Alright, then we want to cut this into pieces. Alright, I don't use the ends for this, although you can if you want. Basically, actually I'll leave it flat. No, I want it on the side. Alright, so we're just going to cut kind of like, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch pieces, something like that. You want a little bit of thickness to it. You don't want it super thin, you don't want it super thick either. Somewhere in between. Now, ideally you'd use a bread knife for this, but I didn't grab one. Alright, so get the little ends off to the side, those will get eaten. Then we want to kind of line these up on the tray. Alright, pretty simple stuff. So I'm going to get the rest of the bread cut, line this up, and we'll get on to the next step. Alright, so the next step here is we want to brush on some olive oil. Let's see, where I have a brush. There we go. Alright, so get our good olive oil here. Put in a little container. That's probably plenty. And we're going to brush on both sides. Let me move around the camera. I'm going to do all the pieces here. Like I said, do the top side, flip it over, make sure you do the bottom side, and move on to the next step, which will be adding some cheese to it. Alright, so both sides are covered. I'm going to go ahead and hit this with just a little bit more pepper, just on the bread itself. That's good. And then, of course, we're going to get our good cheese here. Alright, so you see how this is a little bit more of a coarse, you know, Parmesan. It's not that like super fine stuff. I'm just going to put a little bit on the top. Alright, so this will melt up in the oven as the bread crusts up. We want some like crusty edges on the bread, but we want the centers to be nice and soft still. Now it's worth noting this is a blend. This is Parmesan, Asiago, and Romano cheese, but if you just have the one, totally fine. Alright, that's pretty much it. These are going to get popped in the oven at 400 degrees for 5 minutes. We'll take a look at that as soon as they come out. Alright, so that was in the oven for 5 minutes at 400 degrees, and it wasn't quite done. So I did another 2 minutes with the broil on high for my electric oven, and they look nice and golden and toasty. Alright, so yeah, you might have to experiment a little bit with the temperature and time. But anyway, now it's time to assemble. So, grab a plate. Alright, grab a toast or two. Let's do 3 of them here. Let's pick a nice one out of this one. Whoop. Alright, so 3 of those. We're going to go ahead and you would normally spoon on, but I'm forking on a little bit of the topping. Remember, I washed my hands, so I have no problem using my fingers. And it's looking good. All right, a little bit more. I think that's it. So then we're going to go ahead and use our balsamic glaze. This just kind of gets drizzled. Actually, try and play a little bit. And that's all she wrote. So let's take a look. Whoa, don't bang your plate on the bowl. There it is. At least my version of Italian bruschetta. Now I have to say, the glaze does make a huge difference. I've had it at places where there was no glaze at all, and it's still good. You know, crusty bread, fresh tomatoes, and a little bit of onion, and a little bit of that fresh basil. It's amazing, it's awesome, but that puts it over the edge. So, let me be a 2022 person, and take a picture of this real quick for Instagram, which, you know, who really cares what I'm eating for dinner? And then we get back and we're going to taste this. So I'll be right back. All right, now it's time to taste. Let's get another peek at this. Looking good, looking fresh. And I have to bring the plate to my mouth because this is a messy little appetizer. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, that is delicious. So, if you've never had this before, it's definitely worth trying. We have a crusty bread. It's a little crunchy on the outside, soft and warm on the inside. Really bright flavor, you know, with the fresh tomatoes and the fresh basil and a little bit of that onion. But then that balsamic glaze really adds like a sweetness and of course another layer of flavor if you happen to like balsamic, you know, dressing or balsamic vinegar in general. I think it's awesome. If you don't like the balsamic, of course you can omit that. If you don't like onions, you can omit that. If you don't like the garlic, you can omit that. But then you're really just left with a tomato sandwich, aren't you? But anyway, that is my take on it. If you've never had bruschetta, you definitely need to try it. It is probably one of my favorite Italian appetizers outside of calamari. I'm a huge calamari buff. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. If you have your own bruschetta recipe, please post it down below. What things you've changed, things you like, don't like. Love to hear about it. So that's all. See you guys tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.